She carried raw meat to the river every dawn. Villagers fled when they learned who she was feeding. Have you ever heard a story so terrifying that an entire village fled rather than face the truth? This is the story of Mama Nwanyibuife, the woman who carried raw meat to the river every dawn, and the thing she was feeding. Every single day, the ritual began at exactly 5:07 a.m. Before the first rooster stirred, before the morning fires were lit, and before Umui's village drew its first waking breath, she would emerge from her lonely compound. With bare feet hardened by 30 years of the same journey, and an ancient clay pot balanced on her golden head wrap, she walked the overgrown path toward Mamiri River. The villagers whispered that the path used to be clear, but the forest had swallowed it whole, as if nature itself wanted to hide what happened there. The mist clung to the water like a burial shroud, and even the birds refused to sing until she returned. Inside her pot sat chunks of fresh raw meat, dripping blood that caught the first light of dawn, like liquid fire. She wasn't washing it, she wasn't preserving it, she was feeding something ancient, something hungry, something that would make the villagers abandon their homes when they finally discovered who waited beneath those waters. At exactly 4:15 a.m., while Umue's village slept, a single lantern flickered to life in the compound at the edge of the forest. Mama Nwanyibuife worked in silence, her weathered hands cutting fresh beef in the darkness. 30 years of the same routine had carved these motions into her bones. She didn't need light. She never did. By 5 a.m., she was walking. The path to Miri River had long been swallowed by the forest, bamboo and vines pressing close as if hiding something terrible. Even the insects fell silent when she passed. Even the night birds held their breath. She reached the riverbank at exactly 5:07 a.m. The water stretched before her, black and still, mist rising like smoke from a grave. She lowered her clay pot and whispered words in a language older than the village itself. Ogbanje Miri, I have come, as I have come every dawn. She poured the meat into the water. Blood spread across the surface like reaching fingers. Then the river breathed. It rose slowly, a massive serpentine head breaking the surface, scales shimmering green and silver, eyes glowing like dying embers. The Ogbanje Miri fixed its ancient gaze upon her and spoke in a voice like grinding stones. You are late, old woman. 3 minutes. I counted. It fed. The sound was wet and terrible. When it finished, those burning eyes found her again. The blood grows thin, it growled. My patience is not eternal. You know what I was promised. We made a bargain, she whispered. Bargains can be broken, and hunger always wins. It sank beneath the surface, leaving only ripples and silence. Mama Nwanyibuife's hands trembled. In 30 years, it had never spoken like this. Something was waking. 30 years ago, Miri River was a grave. Every month, a child would vanish beneath its waters. Fishermen who cast their nets at dawn never returned by dusk. Floods swept through without warning, swallowing crops and livestock and dreams. The village elders prayed. The village priest made sacrifices. Nothing worked. Then Mama Nwanyibuife began her walks. No one knew why. No one dared to ask. But within weeks of her first journey to the river, the drowning stopped. The fishermen returned safely. The floods ceased. Miri River, once a monster, became strangely peaceful. The village chose silence over questions, but peace came with a price, and that price was Mama Nwanyibuife herself. The whispers began slowly. Witch, blood woman, river wife. Mothers pulled their children close when she passed through the market. Men avoided her eyes. The seat beside her at village gatherings remained forever empty. Her husband, Obiora, left after the 5th year. He couldn't bear the shame of being married to a woman the village feared. Her children followed soon after, fleeing to the city, desperate to escape their mother's shadow. She let them go. What could she say? I am not a witch. I am your shield. The reason your children still breathe is because I feed a monster every dawn so it doesn't feed on them. Number. Some truths were too heavy for ordinary ears. So Mama Nwanyibuife walked alone, year after year, dawn after dawn. She endured the whispers, the isolation, the slow death of being forgotten by everyone she protected. The village never thanked her. But they never lost another child either, and for 30 years that was enough. Until now. The bus from Lagos arrived at noon, coughing black smoke and carrying one passenger who would change everything. Ikechukwu stepped onto the red dirt road and breathed in the village air. 4 years of university had sharpened his mind and dulled his patience for superstition. He had left Umwes a curious boy. He returned a man who believed only in what he could see, touch, and prove. His grandmother, Mama Adeyezi, was waiting. "Nana Anyi," she whispered, embracing him, "my son has come home." But as they walked through the village, Ikechukwu noticed the stares, the hushed voices, the way people glanced toward the forest edge where a lonely compound sat. "Who lives there?" he asked. Mama Adezi's face tightened. "No one you need to know." "Grandmother Ikechukwu." Her voice was sharp. "Some doors are closed for a reason. Not every truth sets you free." But curiosity was a fire that warnings only fed. That evening, Ikechukwu sat with the young men of the village, drinking palm wine and listening to their stories. And every story eventually circled back to her. Mama Nwanyibuife, the woman who walks to the river before dawn, the woman whose pot is always full when she leaves and empty when she returns, the woman who speaks to something in the water. "She's a witch," one man declared. "Everyone knows it." "Nonsense," Ikechukwu laughed. "There are no witches, only ignorance and fear." The men exchanged glances. "Then prove it," someone challenged. "Follow her tomorrow. See for yourself." Ikechukwu smiled, the confident smile of a man who didn't believe in monsters. "I will." He had no idea what waited for him at that river. Ikechukwu woke at 4 a.m., his heart pounding with excitement. He dressed in darkness and crept through the sleeping village until he reached Mama Nwanyibuife's compound. He didn't wait long. At exactly 4:15 a.m., her lantern flickered to life. He followed her into the forest. The path was narrow, suffocating. Branches clawed at his clothes. The air grew thick with the smell of decay and river water. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but his pride pushed him forward. There are no monsters, only superstition. He repeated it like a prayer. When he reached the riverbank, he hid behind a mangrove tree and watched. Mama Nwanyibuife stood at the water's edge, whispering words he couldn't understand. She tilted her pot. Meat and blood poured into the river. Then the water began to move. Ikechukwu's breath stopped. It rose from the depths, a head larger than a canoe, scales glistening in the pale dawn light, eyes burning like embers from hell. The creature opened its mouth, revealing rows of teeth that could crush a man whole, and then it spoke. "The blood grows thin, old woman." The voice shook the trees. "7 souls. I grow tired of waiting." Mama Nwanyibuife's reply was steady. "You will have your meat, Ogbanje Miri, as I have given for 30 years, as I will give until I die." The creature laughed, a sound like drowning, and sank beneath the surface. Ikechukwu ran. He didn't stop until he collapsed in the village square, gasping, trembling, his university education shattered against the rocks of what he had witnessed. There were no words for what he had seen. Only one truth remained. She is feeding something, and it is hungry for more than meat. Ikechukwu burst into the village square like a man fleeing death itself. "There's something in the river," he screamed. "A creature, a monster. She's been feeding it. She's been..." The villagers gathered, their faces shifting from concern to amusement. The palm wine seller laughed first. Others joined. "The city boy has gone mad," someone mocked. "Too much book has scattered his brain." "I saw it." Ikechukwu grabbed the nearest man. "I saw it rise from the water. It spoke. It demanded 7 souls." More laughter, more shaking heads. But one person wasn't laughing. Mama Adaisy pushed through the crowd and gripped her grandson's face. She looked into his eyes and saw something that turned her blood to ice. This was not drunkenness. This was not madness. This was terror, pure and absolute. "Come," she whispered. "Say nothing more." That evening, the elders gathered in secret beneath the ancient Iroko tree at the edge of the village. Chief Okwudili, the oldest man in Umuezi, listened as Ikechukwu recounted everything, the path, the ritual, the creature, its words. When the young man finished, silence hung heavy as a burial cloth. Finally, Chief Okwudili spoke. "My father warned me," he said, his voice cracking with age. "He said there was something in Miri River, something older than our ancestors. He told me never to let blood touch those waters." He paused. "But I never knew who was keeping it asleep. I never knew who was protecting us." The elders exchanged glances, filled with shame and fear. "What do we do?" Mama Adaze asked. Chief Okwudili closed his eyes. "We summon her, and we pray she forgives us for 30 years of silence." The sun was setting when they came for her. Mama Nwanyibuife was sitting outside her compound, staring at nothing, when the delegation arrived. Chief Okwudili led them, 5 elders, Mama Adaezi and Ikechukwu, whose eyes still carried the haunted look of a man who had seen too much. "Daughter of Umuez," Chief Okwudili said, "the village requests your presence." She didn't ask why. She already knew. The walk to the village square felt longer than the path to the river. Every eye in Umuiz followed her, mothers clutching children, men whispering behind their hands, young ones pointing at the woman they had feared their entire lives. A circle had formed around the ancient Iroko tree. Torches flickered in the evening breeze. The entire village had gathered. Mama Nwanyibuife stood in the center, alone. The accusations came like stones. "Witch! She has cursed us! She speaks to demons! Burn her compound!" Chief Okwudili raised his hand. Silence fell. He walked toward her slowly, his old bones carrying the weight of 70 years and the guilt of 30. He stopped inches from her face and looked into her eyes, eyes that held no fear, only exhaustion. "Daughter of Umuez," he said softly, "for 30 years you have walked alone. You have carried a burden none of us understood. You have endured our whispers, our hatred, our cruelty." He lowered himself to one knee. The crowd gasped. "It is time to share your burden. Tell us everything." Mama Nwanyibuife looked at the faces surrounding her, the same faces that had called her witch, that had spat at her shadow, that had stolen her family with their fear. And for the first time in 30 years, she wept. "Sit down," she whispered. "This story will break your hearts." Mama Nwanyibuife's voice was barely a whisper, but in the silence of the square, every word landed like thunder. "I was 19 years old, a new bride, full of hope." She closed her eyes and 30 years melted away. "I went to Mamiri River to wash my husband's clothes. The morning was peaceful. The water was calm. I thought I was alone." Her hands trembled. "I slipped on a stone, a sacred stone I didn't know existed. It cut my palm. My blood dripped into the water." She held up her hand. In the torchlight, the villagers could see an ancient scar slicing across her palm. The river began to boil. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It rose from the depths, the Ogbanje Miri, a spirit older than this village, older than our ancestors' ancestors. It had been sleeping for centuries. My blood woke it. Her voice cracked. It told me I had disturbed its slumber. It demanded payment. 7 children's souls within 7 days, or it would flood Umuez and drown every living thing. Mothers pulled their children closer. Men gripped their wives' hands. I begged, I pleaded, I offered everything I had. Tears streamed down her weathered face. Finally, it agreed to a bargain, my eternal servitude, daily offerings of animal blood and flesh, and my silence forever. She looked at Chief Okwudili. For 30 years I have fed that creature. For 30 years I have kept it satisfied. Every dawn, every single dawn, while you called me witch, while my husband abandoned me, while my children fled in shame. Her voice hardened. I gave up everything to save children who will never know my name. The village square was silent as a tomb. But now, she whispered, the creature grows hungry, and meat is no longer enough. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Chief Okwudili spoke, his voice heavy with dread. What do you mean? Meat is no longer enough. Mama Nwanyibuife wiped her tears with the back of her hand. This morning, the creature warned me. It said the blood grows thin. It said it remembers what it was promised. She paused. 7 souls. It wants what I denied it 30 years ago. Panic rippled through the crowd. A woman screamed. A man cursed. Children began to cry. We must flee, someone shouted. Leave the village tonight. And go where? Mama Nwanyibuife snapped. The Ogbanje Miri is bound to this river, but its reach extends to anyone who has drunk from its waters. Every single one of you, your children, your grandchildren, it will find you. Despair settled over the square like a burial shroud. Chief Okwudili raised his trembling hand. There may be another way. All eyes turned to him. My grandfather spoke of a legend, he said slowly. A sacred herb called Ogwu Muo, spirit medicine. It grows in the deepest part of the forbidden forest, in a cave where sunlight never reaches. He said it could bind even the most powerful spirits to eternal sleep. Your grandfather sought this herb, Mama Adesi whispered. He never returned. I know, Chief Okwudili's eyes were wet. But what choice do we have? We either find the Ogwu Muo and end this forever, or we wait for the creature to take what it wants. He looked at Mama Nwanyibuife. How much time do we have? She stared into the darkness beyond the torchlight. 3 days, maybe less. Chief Okwudili nodded grimly. Then, at first light, we enter the forbidden forest. 3 days later, the search party returned. Only 4 of the 6 men who entered the forbidden forest walked out. Mazi Ebuka had sacrificed himself to retrieve the Ogwu Muo from the cave where it grew, guarded by things that had no names. His body was never found, but in Chief Okwudili's trembling hands lay a single plant, leaves black as midnight, roots pulsing with ancient power. That night, Mama Nwanyibuife prepared the final offering. She soaked the meat in the herb's essence, her movements slow and deliberate. This was the last time. One way or another, it would end tonight. At 5:07 a.m., she walked to Memiri River, but this time she was not alone. The entire village followed, silent, terrified, united for the first time in 30 years. They stood among the trees as Mama Nwanyibuife approached the water's edge. She poured the meat into the river. The Ogbanje Memiri rose immediately, larger than ever, its eyes blazing with hunger and suspicion. It saw the villagers and smiled, revealing endless rows of teeth. You bring witnesses to your failure, old woman? I bring witnesses to yours, she replied. The creature lunged for the meat. The moment it swallowed, its eyes widened. It thrashed. It screamed, a sound that shook the earth and split the sky. Then slowly, terribly, it sank beneath the surface, dragged down by a sleep that would last forever. Silence. Mama Nwanyibuife dropped her clay pot. It shattered against the stones. She fell to her knees. Not in defeat, but in release. The village rushed forward, embracing the woman they had once called witch. 30 years of isolation ended with a single breath. 1 week later, her children came home. The river flowed peacefully. And Umuez finally knew peace. Mama Nwanyibuife sacrificed everything, her husband, her children, her reputation, to protect a village that called her a witch. 30 years of silence. 30 years of walking alone, and she never asked for a single thank you. If this story moved you, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below. Have you ever been misjudged for something you did out of love? The river is silent now, but there are more secrets to tell.